सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Om, may we be protected and nourished. May we work together with great strength. May our study be fruitful and enlightening. Let there be no quarrels among us. Om, peace, peace, peace. Namaskar. Welcome to the Interfaith University's introductory online study program in Practical Vedanta. I'm Dr. Patrick Horn, an initiated disciple in the spiritual lineage founded by Swami Vivekananda. This 10-part course explores the global history, core concepts, key texts, essential practices, and influential personalities of this ancient sacred philosophy. The topic for this session of Processes and Practices is meditation. You will learn about the theory and techniques of Raja Yoga, or contemplative science, as the study of consciousness, attainment of peak experiences, and fulfillment of human potential. Swami Vivekananda said, "Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more or all of these, and be free." This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or temples or forms are but secondary details. We take in all that has been in the past, enjoy the light of the present, and open every window of the heart for all that will come in the future. When Swami Vivekananda says psychic control, he means Raja Yoga. He says, since the dawn of history, various extraordinary phenomena have been recorded as happening amongst human beings. For thousands of years, such phenomena have been studied, investigated, and generalized. The whole ground of the religious faculties of man has been analyzed, and the practical result is the science of Raja Yoga. This inquiry into truth has its own method of investigation. If you want to become an astronomer and sit down and cry, "Astronomy, astronomy," you will never become one. It is the same with chemistry. A certain method must be followed. You must go to a laboratory, take different substances, mix them, examine them, experiment with them, and out of that will come a knowledge of chemistry. If you want to be an astronomer, you must go to an observatory, take a telescope, and study the stars and planets, and then you will become an astronomer. Each science must have its own methods. I could preach you thousands of sermons, but they would not make you religious until you followed the method. The knowledge of the mind, of the internal nature of man, of thought, can never be had until we have first developed the power of observing what is going on within. It is comparatively easy to observe facts in the external world, for many instruments have been invented for the purpose. But in the internal world, we have no instrument to help us. The science of Raja Yoga proposes to give us such a means of observing the internal states. From childhood onward, we have been taught to pay attention only to things external, but never to things internal. Hence, most of us have nearly lost the faculty of observing the internal mechanism. To turn the mind, as it were, inside, stop it from going outside, and then to concentrate all its powers and throw them upon the mind itself, in order that it may know its own nature, analyze itself, is very hard work. It is easy to concentrate the mind on external things. The mind naturally goes outward, but it is not so in religion or psychology or metaphysics. The object is internal. The mind itself is the object. It is necessary to study the mind itself. The mind studies the mind. The study of Raja Yoga takes a long time and constant practice. A part of this practice is physical, but in the main, it is mental. If one proposes to teach a science to increase the power of sense enjoyment, one finds multitudes ready for it. If one undertakes to show the supreme goal, one finds few to listen. Very few have the power to grasp the highest, fewer still the perseverance to attain it. If you are brave enough, in 6 months you will be a perfect yogi. The yogi teaches that the mind itself has a higher state of existence beyond reason, a superconscious state, and that when the mind rises to that state, then this knowledge, which is beyond reason, comes. Metaphysical and transcendental knowledge comes to that man. It seems to be the consensus opinion of the great minds of the world, and it has been nearly demonstrated by researchers into physical nature, that we are the outcome and manifestation of an absolute condition, which lies behind our present relative condition, and that we shall return to that absolute condition. The yogi says that there is a great danger in stumbling upon this state. Swami Vivekananda says, an effort has been made to avoid technicalities as far as possible and to keep the free and easy style of conversation. Some simple and specific directions are given for students who want to practice, but all such are especially and earnestly warned that, with few exceptions, Raja Yoga can be safely learnt only by direct contact with a teacher. If these conversations succeed in awakening a desire for further information on the subject, the teacher will not be wanting. End quote. There are 3 rare advantages in life: human birth and strength, desire for freedom, and apprenticeship to an illumined master. The teacher should be a perfect knower of Brahman, well-read in the scriptures, and free from immoderate desires and unrestrained appetites. The aspirant must be intelligent, learned, and able to overcome doubt with reason. Through discernment between the real and the unreal, and non-attachment to sense pleasures and the results of actions, the seeker gains 6 treasures: peace, patience, perseverance, faith, wisdom, and mastery. A master's perception of the universe is a continuous perception of God. Teachers and scriptures only point to the possibility of spiritual awareness. The absolute proof is direct experience of truth and freedom. The illumined man is liberated from ignorance and becomes calm and content. Swami Vivekananda says, religion is not in books and temples. It is an actual perception. Only the man who has actually perceived God and soul has religion. Mere intellectual assent does not make us religious. A disciple must have a strong desire to hear the teaching of a master, to serve a genuine authority for the rare opportunity to hear the lessons, to memorize and consider the instructions, then consistently apply the ideas and persist through many difficulties. Next comes a refined command of the concepts and more nuanced discernment before a complete entry into the reality. Swami Vivekananda says, practice is absolutely necessary. You may sit down and listen to me by the hour every day, but if you do not practice, you will not get one step further. It all depends on practice. We never understand these things until we experience them. We have to see and feel them for ourselves. Simply listening to explanations and theories will not do. Vedanta suggests 3 steps to unity with the absolute condition: revelation, reasoning, and realization. First, it is necessary to hear about it. Then, questioning and testing. Finally, in integrating the insights gained from study, contemplation, and direct experience of the real, there is nothing further to be known. Swami Vivekananda says, what is the use of such knowledge? In the first place, knowledge itself is the highest reward of knowledge. And secondly, there is also utility in it. It will take away all our misery. When, by analyzing his own mind, a man comes face to face, as it were, with something which is never destroyed, something which is, by its own nature, eternally pure and perfect, he will no more be miserable, no more be unhappy. The end and aim of all science is to find the unity, the one, out of which the manifold is manufactured, the one appearing as many. Raja Yoga proposes to start from the internal world, study internal nature, and through that control the whole, both internal and external. It is a very old attempt. You must exercise your own reason and judgment. You must learn to experience whether these things happen or not, just as you would take up any other science. Exactly in the same manner, you should take up this science for study. Man cannot live upon words, however he may try. So doubt comes to us as to whether there is any truth in these things or not. Even the best of us will doubt sometimes. With practice, within a few days, a little glimpse will come, enough to give one encouragement and hope. The aim, the end, the goal of all this training is liberation of the soul. First hear, then understand, and then, leaving all distractions, shut your minds to outside influences and devote yourselves to developing the truth within you. There is a danger of frittering away your energies by taking up an idea only for its novelty and then giving it up for another that is newer. Take one thing up and follow it and see the end of it. And before you have seen the end, do not give it up. He who can become mad with an idea, he alone sees the light. Those who only take a nibble here and a nibble there will never attain anything. They may titillate their nerves for a moment, but there it will end. Those who really want to be yogis must give up once for all this nibbling at things. Take up one idea. Make that one idea your life. Think of it, dream of it, live on that idea. This is the way to success, and this is the way great spiritual giants are produced. If we really want to be blessed and make others blessed, we must go deeper. Sankhya provides the metaphysical infrastructure for yoga, usually translated as enumeration or counting. Sankhya might be best understood as calculation in the sense of reasoning. In other words, the path striving to understand ultimate truths of reality through knowledge. Sankhya is dualistic, as the ultimate reality is conceived as containing two distinct principles: Purusha, the innermost conscious self, and Prakriti, the material world. While yoga and Sankhya share the same metaphysics and common goal of liberating Purusha, their methods differ. Sankhya is the path of reasoning to attain liberation, specifically the analysis of the 24 cosmic principles of Prakriti, from which Purusha is to be discerned. Yoga focuses on the nature of mind and consciousness and techniques of concentration, providing a practical method through which Purusha can be isolated. Purusha is and has always been eternally free and autonomous, according to Sankhya. It is the mind, not Purusha, that must become enlightened. The ancient Sankhya school of Kapila is the companion to Patanjali's yogic method. It was studied by Pythagoras and imported into the Alexandrian school and European Gnosticism. There are two main principles: Purusha, the changeless witness, and Prakriti, the material phenomena subject to three conditions of Rajas, creation, Sattva, preservation, and Tamas, destruction. The first manifestation of Prakriti is Mahat, or intelligence. It is sometimes translated as Buddhi, which in mankind is discrimination, discernment, or the determinative function. There is no consciousness inherent in it. Consciousness itself, Purusha, independent of mechanical processes, illumines the mind, the senses, and the objects of perception like the sun is reflected in a jar of water. If the reflection of the sun in a jar of water wobbles, the sun itself does not wobble. It is a false attribution of the ahamkara, or identity-making function, which wrongly attaches to modifications of Prakriti rather than the immutable knower. The reflected self is then bound to mental processes, bodily organs, physical conditions, and ruled by attraction and aversion to various objects and experiences. The mental apparatus, antakarana, includes deliberation, memory, emotion, and will. There are 5 receptive organs corresponding to 5 sense perceptions and 5 elements. There are also 5 action organs. The gross physical form, evolved from minerals to plants to animals, is the instrument of the jiva's experience and dominated by the ahamkara and desire. The jiva's lack of discernment and ignorance causes suffering and grief. The animated mind misidentifies consciousness with itself, equating consciousness with the churnings of thought, vrittis. This misidentification is ignorance, avidya, and the cause of bondage in samsara. The discriminative aspect of buddhi, intelligence, can reveal the distinction between the ultimate conscious principle, the purusha, and even the purest and most subtle states of prakriti. Through meditation, one can cultivate a state of mind where there are no more thoughts or objects, and consciousness has no alternative but to become conscious of itself. By stilling all thought, meditation removes all objects of awareness. Awareness can therefore now be aware only of itself. It can now bypass or transcend all objects of thought, disassociate even from the pure sattvic chitta, and become aware of its own source, the actual soul itself, Purusha. This is the final goal of yoga and thus of human existence. Swami Vivekananda says, the aphorisms of Patanjali are the highest authority on Raja Yoga and form its textbook, end quote. Patanjali was a grammarian and Ayurvedic philosopher. He was not the founder or inventor of yoga, but rather systematized pre-existing traditions and authored a series of cryptic sutras which presents a cluster of techniques for the practitioner interested in a method for investigating consciousness. It is customary to begin the study of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra with a traditional salutation.
Om Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarotam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi Abahu Purushakaram Shankhachakrasidharinam Sahasra Shirasam Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim.
I bow to Patanjali, the most famous among teachers, who removes confusion of the mind with yoga, improves speech with the word, and heals the body with medicine. I bow to Patanjali, who has the form of a human being to the shoulders, who holds the conch, discus, and sword, who has many heads, and who is purity. Srimate Anantaya Nagarajaya Namo Namaha. I bow to the honorable, immortal Serpent King. Knowledge in ancient India was transmitted orally from master to disciple, with an emphasis on the correct recitation of the original set of sutras. The master would interpret the dense aphorisms to the student, and this system continues in traditional contexts today. The primary text of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra was always studied in conjunction with a commentary. The first cluster of techniques is known as Kriya, including tapas, discipline, and austerities, Svadhyaya, the study of scriptures and self-inquiry, and Ishvara Pranidhana, devotion to God, or bhakti. You must avoid severe mortifications. Swami Vivekananda says, what is meant by study? Not study of novels or storybooks, but study of those works which teach the liberation of the soul. Then again, this study does not mean controversial studies at all. The yogi is supposed to have finished his period of controversy. He has had enough of that and has become satisfied. He studies only to intensify his convictions. Vada and Siddhanta are the two kinds of scriptural knowledge. Vada, the argumentative, and Siddhanta, the decisive. When a man is entirely ignorant, he takes up the first of these, the argumentative, fighting and reasoning pro and con. And when he has finished that, he takes up the Siddhanta, the decisive, arriving at a conclusion. Intellectual gymnastics are necessary at first. We must not go blindly into anything. But the yogi has passed the argumentative stage and has come to a conclusion. The only thing he now seeks to do is to intensify that conclusion. Do not argue, he says. If anyone forces arguments upon you, be silent. Do not answer any argument, but go away calmly, because arguments only disturb the mind. Argumentation and reasoning are only preliminary stages. There are things beyond them. The whole of life is not for schoolboy fights and debating societies. Give up all argumentation and other distractions. Is there anything in dry intellectual jargon? It only throws the mind off its balance and disturbs it. Klesha is from the root klish, meaning to torment, trouble, cause pain, or afflict. The word is often translated as obstacles, since in addition to afflicting living beings, the kleshas obstruct the mind from realizing the nature of the true self. Patanjali identifies 5 afflictions: avidya, which is ignorance, misconception, or misperception; asmita, false identity; raga, which is attraction or attachment, meaning dwelling on past experiences with the desire for repetition; devesha, aversion or hatred, dwelling on past experience, seeking to avoid present or future pain; and abhinivesha, fear of death, clinging to the world. Kriya weakens these afflictions and readies the mind for meditation. The second cluster of techniques in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is Ashtanga Yoga, which means 8 steps to realization. The entire teaching can be summed up in Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is control of the activities of the mind. The first steps of austerity and discipline, yama and niyama, are moral training, foundational, without which no practice of yoga will succeed. These are followed by preparatory steps of asana and pranayama, or postures and breath control, followed by intermediate steps of pratyahara and dharana, withdrawal from the senses and concentration, followed by the advanced practice of dhyana, meditation or contemplation, and samadhi, unitary consciousness, in two general varieties: salvikalpa, with name and form in the realm of time, space, and causation, the immanent mystical state, or nirvikalpa, without name and form and beyond time, space, and causation, the transcendent pure consciousness. Patanjali identifies 9 obstacles to meditation. Vyadhi, disease. There are 3 types of pain and suffering. The first is mental or physical disorders from an organic cause, including psychosomatic. Second, different fractures or falls, traumas from an extra-organic cause. And third, seasonal or elemental disorders. The second obstacle to meditation is a lack of interest. The third, sanshaya, doubt. Fourth, pramada, false perception. Fifth, alasya, lethargy or laziness. The sixth obstacle is sensory cravings or unmoderated desire and unrestrained appetite. The seventh is erroneous conception. The fifth is a failure to reach the different stages of Ashtanga yoga and different levels of concentration and samadhi. And the ninth and final is a failure to retain a level of concentration once reached. Again, the foundational steps of Ashtanga yoga are the yamas and niyamas, the austerities and the disciplines. The 5 yamas are ahimsa, abstinence from harm in thought, word, and action; satya, honesty; aparigraha, non-hoarding; asteya, non-stealing. These are both related to the moderation of desire and restraint of appetite; and brahmacharya, the practice of the presence of God as the all-pervading, immanent reality. The 5 niyamas include keeping the body clean and the mind pure, practicing contentment or santosha, generous service, svadhyaya, which is the study of scriptures and self-inquiry, not only the investigation of the mind in itself, but also psychological analysis and remediation. And finally, Ishvari Pranidhana, attention to God through devotional practices, bhakti. Beyond the foundation of the yamas and the niyamas are the preparatory steps of asana and pranayama. Swami Vivekananda says, a series of exercises, physical and mental, is to be gone through every day until certain higher states are reached. Therefore, it is quite necessary that we should find a posture in which we can remain for a long time. That posture, which is the easiest, should be the one chosen. This portion of yoga is a little similar to Hatha Yoga, which deals entirely with the physical body, its aim being to make the physical body very strong. We have nothing to do with it here because its practices are very difficult and cannot be learnt in a day, and after all, do not lead to much spiritual growth. The object in these is physical, not spiritual. The result of Hatha Yoga is simply to make men live long. Health is the chief idea, the one goal of the Hatha Yogi. He is determined not to fall sick, and he never does. He lives long, but that is all. If a man lives long, he is only a healthy animal. The vast mass of humanity is very little removed from the animals, for in many instances, their power of control is little higher than that of the animals. We have very little command of our minds. Therefore, to acquire that command, to get that control over body and mind, we must take certain physical helps. When the body is sufficiently controlled, we can attempt the manipulation of the mind. 1 or 2 ordinary lessons of the Hatha yogis are very useful. After one has learnt to have a firm, erect seat, one has to perform, according to certain schools, a practice called the purification of the nerves. This part has been rejected by some as not belonging to Raja Yoga. End quote. Here again is a danger of injury, insanity, or death, requiring right guidance from a competent teacher. The intermediate steps of pratyahara, concentration, and dharana, focus, lead to the advanced practice of dhyana, meditation, or contemplation, and the goal of superconsciousness, samadhi. When you withdraw from the senses, fix the mind to a point of concentration for 12 seconds, you achieve focus. Holding that concentration for 2 minutes and 24 seconds is the beginning of meditation. Holding that concentration for 28 minutes and 48 seconds leads to the first level of samadhi, and holding that concentration of mind at a fixed point for 5 hours, 45 minutes, and 36 seconds leads to the higher samadhi, nirvikalpa. Patanjali gives directions for meditation with Om. Swami Vivekananda describes an esoteric technique of Tantra called the Kundalini rising in the symbolic language of the yogis. Swami Vivekananda says, everything that we see or imagine or dream, we have to perceive in space. This is the ordinary space called the Mahaakasha, or physical space. When perception has become objectless and the soul shines in its own nature, it is called Chidakasha, or knowledge space. When the Kundalini is aroused and enters the canal of the Sushumna, the center of the spinal cord, all perceptions are in the mental space. When it has reached that end of the canal, which opens out into the brain, the objectless perception is in the knowledge space. This Sushumna is in ordinary persons closed up at the lower extremity. No current comes through it. The yogi proposes a practice by which it can be opened and the nerve currents made to travel through it. When a minute portion of energy travels along a nerve fiber and causes a reaction from the various centers, the perception is either dream or imagination. But when by the power of a long internal meditation, the vast mass of energy stored up travels along the Sushumna and strikes the centers, the reaction is tremendous immensely superior to the reaction of dream or imagination, immensely more intense than the reaction of sense perception. It is supersensuous perception. The rousing of the Kundalini is the one and only way to the attaining of divine wisdom, superconscious perception, realization of the spirit. The rousing may come in various ways, through love for God, through the mercy of perfected sages, or through the power of the analytic will of the philosopher. According to Vedanta, the infinite, undivided, unchanging Satchitananda, existence, consciousness, bliss, is the only reality. Brahman is the origin of the multitude of creatures who all return to Brahman in the end. Though Brahman is the source and substance of all phenomena and personalities, that Brahman is unchanged. Brahman is life. Brahman is thought. Brahman is the elements and the senses. Brahman is the material world and the sun, moon, and stars. Brahman is the herbs of the fields. Brahman is the river that flows from the mountaintop to the ocean. Brahman is song. Brahman is ritual. Brahman is the gift and the act of giving. Brahman is immortal and indestructible, and those who know Brahman in all are free from ignorance and do not fear death. Brahman is the formless and the various forms of creation. All creatures, worlds, and thoughts are the eternal Brahman. Sharpen your mind in meditation, and with concentration in correct practice, you will reach God. Your soul, Atman, is like an arrow. The target is Brahman. With the teaching of a master and the sacred word Om as your bow, hit the center of the mark. Thus, as the arrow becomes one with the target, so too does the Atman become one with Brahman. If you meditate upon Om, you will know Brahman and dwell in that which is both immanent and transcendent. You will be free of doubt and despair. You will be wise and joyful. Your duty will be fulfilled when you know the indivisible Brahman as the pure existence of all things. Brahman is the universe. The realized soul desires Brahman and fears not death. Having reached the supreme goal, they enjoy peace, freedom, and wisdom. They overcome grief and entanglement to achieve immortality. He who knows Brahman becomes Brahman, like a river flows into the ocean. Samadhi, or unitary consciousness, or transcendence of the subject-object duality, is either savikalpa, with name and form in the realm of time, space, and causation, or immanent, or nirvikalpa, without name and form and beyond time, space, and causation, the rare and authentic, non-dualistic, pure consciousness event. Patanjali says that samadhi is the spontaneous effect of concentration upon an object among objects, an object in itself, an object as a composite of elements, elements in themselves, elements as a manifestation of Prakriti, Prakriti itself, the mental apparatus in itself, the mental apparatus as a manifestation of Prakriti, the identity-making function in itself, the identity-making function as a manifestation of Prakriti, and the unlimited, non-local, absolute unitary being, the reality. Vyasa defines 9 classes of yogis according to intensity, karmic past, and subliminal impressions. And he gives 4 stages of yogic practice, from the first light of dawn for the neophyte, the honey stage delighting in truth, the master who attained the light of wisdom and control of the elements and the senses, and those who are beyond suffering, with nothing further to accomplish, liberated and perfect. There are also stages of progress for the yogi, from aspirant to knower of Brahman to free soul. In the 3rd chapter of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, instructions are given for the attainment of extrasensory perception and mind powers, including knowledge of others' thoughts, knowledge of past life and previous incarnations, knowledge of future life and events, including death, superhuman knowledge of history, knowledge of the invisible processes of nature, and remote sensing. Swami Vivekananda says, "There is no liberation in getting powers. It is a search after worldly enjoyments, and there is no real enjoyment in this life. All search for enjoyment is vain. This is the old lesson which man finds so hard to learn. When he does learn it, he gets out of the universe and becomes free. The possession of what are called occult powers only intensifies worldliness and in the end intensifies suffering." Though as a scientist, Patanjali is bound to point out the possibilities of his science, he never misses an opportunity to warn us against these powers. These powers of the worldly state are obstacles to samadhi, including the ability to shrink or expand, or to make the body weightless, immovable, invisible, resistant to disease, decay, and able to die at will. The yogi must reject the instant manifestation of material things for wish fulfillment and other supernatural abilities, such as reviving the recently dead and hypnotizing the masses. Swami Vivekananda says, "The powers which the yogi can obtain are obstructions to the attainment of the highest goal, the knowledge of the pure self or freedom. These are to be met on the way, and if the yogi rejects them, he attains the highest. If he is tempted to acquire these, his farther progress is barred." This is the real goal of practice: discrimination between the real and the unreal. Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the ultimate knowledge and consciousness itself, leads to the manifestation of inherent character and liberation of the soul. Swami Vivekananda says, "Nature's task is done. This unselfish task, which our sweet nurse, nature, has imposed upon herself. She gently takes the self-forgetting soul by the hand, as it were, and shows it all the experiences in the universe, all manifestations, bringing it higher and higher through various bodies till its lost glory comes back and it remembers its own nature. Then the kind mother goes back the same way she came for others who also have lost their way in the trackless desert of life. Thus is she working, without beginning and without end, and thus through pleasure and pain, through good and evil, the infinite river of souls is flowing into the ocean of perfection, of self-realization. When the Purusha knows that freedom is its very nature and that it does not need anything to attain perfection, when it knows that nature is transitory and really meaningless, that very moment the Purusha attains liberation and becomes isolated from nature. This state is attained when the mixture of purity and impurity called the sattva, that is to say the intellect, has been made as pure as the Purusha itself. Then the sattva reflects only the unqualified essence of purity, which is the Purusha. He is a Jivan Mukta who can live in this world without being attached. He is the highest of human beings, nay, the highest of all beings, for he has realized his identity with the Absolute. He has realized that he is one with God. Glory unto those who have realized their own nature. May their blessings be on us all. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotir Gamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace.